family member are cremated, how is it that the right cremains or ashes are given back to the right family? Hello, my name's Lisa Herbert from the Bottom Drawer Book, the After Death Action Plan. I pose that very question to the CEO of the Australasian Cemeteries and Crematoria Association, Chris Harrington.
The cremation process obviously is when we're talking about flame cremation. So it's the process by which a deceased person is placed in a cremator. The cremator is obviously burning at high temperatures in and around the sort of 850 degrees Celsius temperatures. The body in the coffin is placed in the cremator. The process of the cremation takes around about 90 minutes, and that can vary. Different cremators and the like, but it's around about a 90-minute process. Once the cremation is done, then the remains are basically turned into I guess bone fragments and an ash, like you would imagine. The remains are then what we call processed, if you like, and that means that they are the bone fragments that are left are ground down into that fine ash that we all know that we receive if you've ever had a loved one pass away and cremated. You would know that fine ash is a result of that cremation process.
How can we be assured that the ashes or the cremains we're taking home are of our loved one?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think that the design of a cremator, for starters, would answer that question. The door of a cremator is only just beyond the size of what you would say a regular coffin or casket is. So that the first question that comes to mind is, do you put more than one body in a cremator at one time? It's impossible. You simply can't put one coffin in a cremator at that temperature and then do anything more than close the door and allow that cremation to take place. We're talking about heat of 850 degrees Celsius. It's simply not possible. Once that process is done, then, as we said before, the cremains are taken out of the cremator. They've got to cool, and that's the other thing. The process of cooling has to happen. So then those remains are then separated and then processed, as we say. So it just wouldn't. It's just not fathomable that you would have any more than one, cremation done at one time. There's too much involved that needs to be done individually. So yeah, and again, there's we do find that there's more families that are interested in actually seeing the cremation process or the start of the cremation process. So those that are a bit, superstitious or just wanting to make sure that, their loved one is actually being cremated as agreed. So there are a number of sort of more modern crematoria that have developed viewing rooms, if you like. So a really lovely room where the family can sit, and there's a viewing window which then views onto the cremator. So the cremator operator would allow the family to see what they call the charging of the bier, which means that the placement of the coffin into the cremator. And then once that process starts, then obviously that's when it's up and going, and the family are sort of more comfortable that they've seen that the coffin actually placed in the cremator. Yeah.
It's good to know that is an option. And that brings me to another point. In the past, there's always been this perception that all this stuff happens behind closed doors. So how can we trust the process? I guess what you're saying is you can be involved in the process. Is it fair to say that people are allowed to inspect facilities?
Yeah, inspecting. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's. I guess when we talk about this sort of thing, the old-fashioned vernacular or narrative was that it's taboo and death is taboo.
Yeah.
I really dislike that narrative. I'm kind of one of the. I guess I'm a. What would you call? I'm a champion of change. I just think we need to change the narrative around death and dying, because there is so many more people that are willing and wanting to talk about these things, so that it's more understood. There's more information that's getting out there, and it helps us all with our grief process. In order to understand what's involved, it helps us mentally. So yeah, absolutely. Cemeteries and crematoria are, in most cases, absolutely happy to take people through and have a look around. There are certain areas of the facility that would be off bounds, and they are, when it becomes quite, how would I say it? It's probably a little bit more. When we're talking about the preparation of deceased persons, when we're talking about funeral homes, funeral homes would have to use their discretion, obviously, as to how much of that process that they would allow the public to see, because some people aren't quite ready to see certain things, and I guess it's our responsibility as a profession to make sure we safeguard everyone's. Sharing knowledge is one thing, but safeguarding everyone's ability to probably process and comprehend what goes on is important. So, sometimes you trust the professionals. You do it with doctors and surgeons and things like that. I think this profession is akin to that in some respects. But yeah, absolutely. The crematoria and the cemetery probably more open these days than they ever were, which is great, which is actually fantastic. I've been to a number of tours of cemeteries and crematoria where people have been taken through and seen the process and have it explained to them. And it's they walk out of those sort of situations so much more informed, and you can tell people are far more comfortable now with thinking about these things and talking about them, which is great, which is really what we're after.
Yeah, agreed. Mortuaries and fridges aren't for everyone, and nor should they be, because we've got to think of the family's privacy as well. I had a wonderful cemetery experience or crematorium experience in Brisbane, and I met the crematoria operator who goes to great pains and passion that when a baby is cremated, he goes through the ashes and the cremains by hand to make sure every skerrick of that baby is given back to the family. That's what he does. That's what he needs to do for himself. And I really took that on board as going, gee, there are some wonderful people working in this industry that would care so much. It's just wonderful to see. So I really enjoyed going through cemeteries, and I learned so much from those. So I encourage you, if you're in a Rotary club or you've got a group of friends and you want to find out what goes on behind the scenes, contact your local funeral director or your local cemetery or crematorium and just say, you know what, I've got a group of 10 people. Can we bring the bus around next week and have a tour? Because I find people are so open and so willing to share, which is a wonderful reflection.
I hope that clarifies a couple of things for you. A big thanks to Chris Harrington from the Australasian Cemeteries and Crematoria Association. It's all about being informed and being less fearful of the inevitable and making informed choices. It's why I wrote the bottom drawer book, the After Death Action Plan. It's a colourful modern guide and workbook for you to write down your end of life plans, your life's reflections. Believe it or not, it's actually quite cheery and it's very, very valuable. The gift your family didn't know they needed until they do. You can check it out at thebottomdrawerbook.com.au and keep an eye on my Facebook page for more videos like this one. The Bottom Drawer Book on Facebook.